Okay, we're gonna do
I can find it.
a review now of an argument style of essay. So we've been doing a lot of review of rhetorical analysis. I'm hoping that you feel a little bit more familiar with that style of essay. As I saw the essays come in throughout last week, they were getting a little bit better. Every once in a while, I'd get a prompt that was difficult for everyone, like the Grizzlies prompt. If you guys did that, that was tough. But the Browning, Elizabeth Browning ones that you did last time on Friday, if you were here, for Victor Hugo and like Napoleon, that stuff, those ended up really good. So I'm hopeful about the rhetorical analysis, that you're like seeing how to get to a specific argument through these rhetorical skills. Argument essays, I feel like sometimes we have, this sounds bad, but we have like some false confidence with argument essays because you've been writing them since elementary school. You're like, I can nail this. This is my style. I'm very familiar with arguments. I can bust this out. But there are a few weak points that I'm seeing in the argument essay. So let's review those. Number one, your thesis statement. I've been teaching you to do a claim plus a reason. And the reason that I've been teaching you that is because if you don't have this reason, it becomes very difficult to organize a paper just around a claim. So you want to make sure that your thesis statement not only says your position on the topic, like I think this, without saying I think, you can just say this is the truth, right? But also why it's the truth according to you. And that reason part is the difficult part of the thesis. It's because you can know what your opinion is, but finding a way to focus that opinion for a 40-minute essay can be a little tricky. So that's one part of it. Number two that we've been talking about is organizing based on the logic of the thesis. So on the AP prompt, they call this, what I gotta make sure I get the language, line of reasoning. So this is one of the things that they are looking for in your evidence, is to make sure that you've got a line of reasoning that goes through your whole paper, which means that you're saying basically this causes this, which leads to this, right? You're setting up this kind of like cause and effect logic that will ultimately, which concludes my argument, here's the whole argument, which ultimately gets you to the end of the argument with every piece proven, right? We've been talking a lot about that. That's like the thing that I hit the very hardest. And number three, this thing I maybe didn't hit as hard as I needed to, we need to think about examples. Let's put number three over here. The evidence that we are using to make each point. Every point that you make in your essay, you need to back up with some kind of example or some kind of evidence. And there's lots of ways to find that evidence. You can think about history. You can think about text we've studied in class. Let's pause there. What are some of the texts we studied in class that have stood out to you that might be helpful when you're going to write an argument essay? Sam? Yeah, good. Susan Sontag on photography. A lot of times you can make that work with a lot of different topics. Okay, cool. What else have we read that's been helpful to you when you're writing? Or could be helpful to you? Lily? Gatsby works so well for so many different topics. You could use Gatsby to talk about gender, about wealth, about aspirations and ambition, like so much. Okay, even about race. Yeah, Isaac.
Like Frederick Douglass.
Yes. We read that whole book that you could use him as an example, but you could also use what he said in his book as an example.
So I actually have a question about this. So does it have to be something that we've necessarily gone over, or can it be kind of anything from like media and movies and stuff that we've seen? Like
For examples and evidence?
Yeah.
Anything. But I'm going to make a list here so that you can see that you have some stuff that you can rely on to be academic enough to add some ethos to your paper.
Okay.
Yeah. Cooper?
We can go over a lot of the civil rights framework.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the essays now are going to do somewhat with the civil rights and all of that.
So
the
much.
Issues that have come up in the past year, it's good to assume that you're going to have it do something.
They try, yeah. they try to say that that it is like random, that it won't be based on current events. But every year I've been teaching this class, the prompt always fits so well into current events. Like with the Trump election, for example, that year, I just remember it so clearly. You had one lady that was talking about how great like the news is. So like print media, which was being attacked at the time. You had the prompt was about what do you think, what's one thing that might be overrated, which fits so well with the year 2016. And then the synthesis example was about climate change. So like the idea that like they're not sort of like maybe paying attention to the times is a little silly to me. Like a lot of times it will kind of come up that it'll be relevant. That's partly because they want you to succeed. And so they're looking for topics that you're probably thinking about in your own life. Civil rights rhetoric, who were some writers that we looked at with civil rights rhetoric besides Frederick Douglass? Yeah, we looked at Martin Luther King. Who else? Yeah, yeah, Ta-Nehisi Coates. Ta-Nehisi Coates was the Between the World and Me.
I'm thinking the one Zora Neale Hurston.
Yes, Zora Neale Hurston. That was the one that was, how does it feel like? What does it feel like to be called me? Who else did we? Yeah. Yeah, Frederick Douglass, he's right up there, so I'll leave him there. But yes, he was part of civil rights rhetoric. We also looked at Baldwin, who wrote the letter to his nephew. We also looked at some early slave narratives.
Those things are great.
Does that kind of cover it? We didn't do Alice Walker this year. Feels like we did a lot more than that. Okay, well, anyway, what did we do at the very beginning of the year you could use? Yeah, Scarlet Letter. Even if you just remember the basics, it works. And with Scarlet Letter, we had all those transcendentalist texts. Transcendentalism is a great one to use because it's all about being independent and trusting yourself and having a direct connection to God. Like there's so many topics under transcendentalism that will fit in well. Who did we read with transcendentalism?
Yeah, that really is.
Oh, that was a civil rights rhetoric. What was that guy's name? I can't remember. He was awesome though. I had just learned about him this year. But with transcendentalists, who did we read? Thoreau and Emerson. And Franklin was actually a different guy when we were talking about American Dreams. Yeah, and we've read so much, right? So Thoreau and Emerson were the two big ones with transcendentalism. Tell me more about American Dream. We had Franklin. Who else did we read about the American Dream?
The baby eater.
Yeah.
Oh.
No,
Oh, for satire. Oh, yeah. A modest proposal with his Swift. Oh, you know how to spell it. Oh, I forgot. Okay. What other American Dream texts did we read? Gatsby, Franklin. How about your novels? Yeah, things we that does fit into the things we carried. The Right for Watching God.
Definitely did.
And Of Mice and Men. Okay, any others for American Dream? You know, one text that people have been finding very useful is Ezra Klein's Why We Are Polarized. We did that when we were, yeah, we just,
wondering what that was.
yeah. We didn't talk about it that much because I was just using it to talk about sources and how sources can be biased, but it turns out that one kind of fits into a lot of places. How about social media texts? Which ones did we look at? We had on photography. Yeah. Yeah. George Orwell and how politics influences our language, right? Lots of the prompts will be about language and how you make certain language choices. So that one can be useful. It's called Politics in the English Language. What else did we talk about with social media? Yeah, you remember Gia? Yep, the I am internet. So we had those three. We had one other. Sontag, Orwell, Tolentino, and Malcolm Gladwell about the revolution. So, okay, this is not even extensive, but look how many texts you have to pull from. All of those texts are credible texts. all of those texts will be recognized in an academic setting as being something that you can pull from, not just to illustrate a concept, but to say an expert has said this, right? Because sometimes when we get into some of these other things, so we have history, we have texts in class, when we get into other things like pop culture, it becomes, it's totally usable. Use it. That's the stuff you know best, right? But it becomes a little bit more difficult to maintain that academic voice. So remember, pop culture is illustrative, not authoritative. So totally use that Kelly Clarkson quote. That totally works, but you can't say Kelly Clarkson says it and so it is true. Because we all know Kelly Clarkson is a hack. No, I don't know. But you have to be careful with pop culture. You can also use personal experiences, and I totally encourage it. It's great to use personal experiences, especially in a hook, but again, illustrative. Just because it happened to you once doesn't mean that it's true for everyone. So you can use that as an example to illustrate some things, but it's not definitive. You can use current events. And you can use science and psychology. That's kind of the main categories. With history, I'm gonna give you a little caveat. Hitler as a last resort. Stalin as a second to last resort. Not that it doesn't work, but every once in a while it feels like such a stretch that I'm like, this person just wanted to talk about Nazis. Like this person has Nazis on the brain. Sometimes it's like, yeah, it's a stretch and it becomes a little cliche. So if you can possibly think of a different historical event, then it'll be stronger. Yeah, Cooper.
So I did this with one of my rhetorical analysis.
Yeah.
Or an argument essay, but I compared, no, it was the honor code one. I compared the honor code to the Heil Hitler over and over.
Oh,
yeah.
So it was like, it was a double referencing that scene from Jojo Rabbit where they Heil Hitler like 40 times in a minute.
Yeah.
Jojo Rabbit.
I'm trying to think if that was a good call. I think it,
It was one of those decisions where it's like, yeah, this isn't the best idea, but man, it was too funny when I thought of it to not do it.
I think it can work. If you also could think of a phrase that becomes, because you're talking about, what was the point with that one? What was the argument at a point?
I was talking about how every time you have to write, I did not cheat on this test at the bottom of a paper, like on everything.
Yeah.
I was comparing it to that.
Okay, I think a stronger one, now in the heat of the moment, like you just gotta go with comes into your head, right? A stronger would have been George Orwell's points about fascism. Because it kind of works the same way, right? You repeat the word so much that it starts to lose meaning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that works.
So, yeah. But again, Hitler is a last resort, but that doesn't mean you can't write about Germany and Hitler for your example. It just know that that's like the go-to for 11th and 12th graders. So if you can think of something different, it helps you stand out a little. Yeah.
So how I've been kind of formatting these, especially with the outlines that we did, I've kind of tried to write a paragraph that fits under each one of these sections.
These?
Is that way? Yeah. Is that a good way to do it? Like I'll have one paragraph that like explains an example with pop culture, and then the next paragraph is a historical
Yeah.
example, and then the last one is personal experience.
It's a good idea to have some variation in the examples, but if all three of your examples come from things you've read or things from history, you won't get into trouble. What you get into trouble with is if all three examples are personal and pop culture. So as long as you have a varied level, as long as you get something academic in there. But let's talk about organization. You don't necessarily want to organize around the examples, right? You want to organize around your thesis statement and use the examples to fit it in. To fit those examples in. That I'm not saying you didn't do that. I'm just saying that's one thing to consider. Let's look at this prompt I gave you. The pink one. I like the prompts about education because you guys have so much experience with it that your examples can come a little easier. It says, in the following passage from the essay, The Talented Tenth, American sociologist W.E.B. Du Bois, that's who we forgot.
The boy.
Du Bois. Value of agitation. All right. Oh, it's Du Bois, not Day Boys. Sorry.
The boy.
Yeah, but he was American and said you don't pronounce it well. It should be, but
That reminds me of a
All right, so W.E.B. Du Bois spends time defining what the purpose of education is not. Read the passage carefully, then write an essay that argues your position on what the true purpose of education should be. So ultimately, what is this question asking you before you even read the passage? What is the true purpose of education according to you? That means you need to hit maybe some ideas that he has in this passage, but ultimately it is your opinion that is central, right? If you just repeat Du Bois's idea as your thesis statement, you don't get that thesis statement point. It has to be according to you. Okay. The training of men is a difficult and intricate task. Its technique is a matter for educational experts, but its object is the vision of seers. Someone put that in their own words. What is it saying there? Cooper?
It's kind of saying that you have to teach people, but like there's not a definitive reason why. It's like you have to prepare them for something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's in there, especially in the second half of this quote, but it might be getting ahead a little. Just this first part of the quote is saying that the way we teach, like the worksheets and the lecturing and discussions, that can be decided by educational experts. But the object is for the vision of seers. What does that part mean? The object of education is for the vision of seers. Yeah, Nathan.
This is just a guess, but it sounds like it's saying the goal is for the vision of like visionaries. And
Yes.
The goal is, yeah.
Yes, so it's like the goal of the way we teach, that can be for the experts, but the goal of what we teach, like what we want people to turn into, like what Cooper was talking about, that's for visionaries. Visionaries should decide the goal of education. It says if we make money the object of man training, I really just want to start calling class man training. If we make money the object of man training, we shall develop money makers, but not necessarily men. If we make technical skill the object of education, we may possess artisans, but not in nature men. All right, so what's his problem with education the way he set it up here?
It's very like, it's not specific to the person and it's very generalized and very like, it's also meant for society, I guess, as a whole and not for the individual person.
Excellent. So we are focusing on making the society run and not necessarily the sort of development of the individual. I like that. I think there's other ways to interpret this too. What else might be a problem with education the way he sees it here? With training people to be money makers and technical. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's saying that, so Du Bois is saying then that education should not just be about teaching people how to be in jobs. Like it shouldn't just be about teaching you to be good capitalists. It should be about teaching you to be individuals, to be prepared for life. Somehow this nebulous idea of being a man, I think you guys can read it as women too in 2021. I think we can make that leap. So it's like he has this problem with it, but it says then, what is your position on the true purpose of education? All right, so with this format, thesis statement, claim plus reason, write down a thesis statement at the bottom of this page.
What if your thesis statement ends up lining up with what his is? Like, what if you?
That's okay.
So like, for example, I wrote about how the education system is designed for the development of a capitalist society and not the growth of an individual. Would that be repeating what you said?
It
Or would
is,
that
but
be-
then you need to add in what you think then the ideal purpose is. Because right now you're doing what he is, which is saying what education is not. And so you have to be clear about what education
Oh,
should be. Yeah.
I thought what it is, not what it should. be.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
And that's where, like, if you are to answer the prompt, no one will be able to just repeat what the boy said. Okay, when you get a prompt like this, I think it's a good idea to spend 4 minutes or so writing out your first draft of the thesis. You might not get it perfect, you're just trying to write as quickly as you can, but you get your ideas out there. You own this test, you spent $100 on it, so just write it directly on the prompt. So this is kind of like my first draft of my thesis. It says the purpose of education is to enable communication between diverse viewpoints. By encouraging honest expression, we can develop the recognition of nuance and beauty in our lives. That's a very Englishy teacher type of purpose to education, but I mean, that's why I wanted to do English. So this has a claim. Here's the purpose. And it also has the reason. I haven't used the because structure, but I do have the reason in there. Because we're doing this and so that we can develop recognition of nuance and beauty. What I want you to do now is talk to the person next to you, make sure you have, so give them feedback. Do they have a claim and a reason for their claim? You guys, you can put your thesis in the chat box for this.
Okay. Sure. Okay.
On the test or right now? Rewrite it. Oh. Do you despise your idea or the wording? Both? Well, then I can't help you. Step back here, let me see what it says. Maybe we can find something.
That has cause, reason, and effect. Like what? Yeah. Thank you.
So you're
Isn't it weird that human actions are all related to the application of like the time start? Or the fail.
Okay, let's say I've got my thesis now, and I know it has a claim and a reason. I'm gonna show you the next step on the actual test. So this whole thing, we'll try one of these timed next time. This whole thing takes me about 5 minutes. I say 5 minutes prep time for the argument essays. So I've got a draft of a thesis. I will take just a moment to kind of map out the order of my paragraphs. I do that because if you look look at the things they're telling you to do on the pink sheet. It says 1, respond to the prompt with a thesis that prevents a defensible position. Okay, we just did that. 2, provide evidence to support your line of reasoning. So the number 2 thing they are looking for there is kind of the outline of your ideas, how your ideas are moving, in order, right? So I take a second to map that out, and I do it as quickly as I can. I really just do, single words. So I'm like, purpose of education is to enable communication. Okay, 1, communication. Oops, I didn't spell right. That's okay. Number 2, oh, it's about diverse viewpoints. I can't write. There we go. Number 3 here, I'm saying, oh, honest expression about recognition of nuance. That's going to be my next point. And 4, beauty in our lives. That's my next point. So my thesis, if my thesis is logical, it already provides me the order of ideas, but I just like having that sort of written out like that. It took me, 20 seconds. And now I kind of know the order that I'm going to need to present these ideas. So I'm going to give you 1 minute. Try and break down your thesis like that into little parts. Think about it this way. This causes this, causes this, causes this. Think about a cause and effect. How could you prove it in a cause and effect order?
Okay. Eli, you've got the cause and effect there because you've said the claim and the reason. You've got purpose, and then it's ultimately to make the world more individualized, right? And Emmeline, you have it too. It's here's the purpose. It's to teach us necessary skills and habits, right? And then the reason is to thrive in our day-to-day lives, but yours is staying a little bit too vague in what that means to thrive. Like, what is it that we learn in our education that is supposed to enable our lives to be like better outside of education? So think about how to specify that word thrive. Yeah. Highest potential. What is that? Monetary, like to have the most money, or is it about world? Like, what is that?
Okay, so you take a second, you map it out, right? Now this part you don't do ahead of time. This is where you start writing. In fact, let's start writing.
You said we weren't right.
No, you're not gonna write the whole thing.
I feel,
But we're gonna practice intros because the intro is so important for an argument style essay. So rhetorical analysis, you use soapstones for the intro, right? Argument style essays, they want you to practice this kind of intro that can get people's attention, but it's not too long. It's a kind of a delicate balance. You don't want to like go on for 3 pages about what your school has been like, right? But you do want to hook your reader's attention. Hook them. So try and write an intro. In this intro, you need to do 2 things. You need to address what Du Bois said, and you need to hook your audience. So think about how you're going to do that. I am going to give you 5 minutes to write an intro. It goes so fast. You just gotta go with your gut. Okay, 5 minutes. The very last sentence of your intro is your thesis statement. You're including that in the intro. Okay, go. On the white paper. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. It wouldn't be that big if I were just writing it on the paper. It would probably be the same. $30. Okay. All right, if you didn't get through the part where you were just rewriting your thesis statement, that's okay, but that's about as long as you would want to spend on an intro. So if you didn't get through it, that might mean that your intro is a little long and you can cut some stuff from it. Here's what mine looks like. And you're gonna see like the goal, the goal is to write well, but the goal is also to write as much as you can. So, you know, not all these sentences are needed here, but I just kind of bled. So bleh. Many students have experienced the kind of education system Du Bois describes in The Talented 10. They're thrown into classes that do not seem to have real relevance to their lives and told that this knowledge will benefit them in the real world. The real world educators seem to be referring to is a capitalist world full of compliant, capable workers and powerful, authoritative CEOs. Du Bois dismisses this educational goal because it doesn't address the development of men. The purpose of education should be character building, not money making. We need to consider a whole experience of the world and not just the experiences we are forced to have in our 9-to-5 prisons. I got a little bit excited there. Then I said the purpose of education is to enable communication between diverse viewpoints, blah, blah, blah. So, so I tried to develop a bit of a hook here just with word choices like forced and 9-to-5 prisons. But for the most part, I kind of it's a little bit dry, but I am addressing Du Bois. So what I want you to do now, a little bit of a little bit of peer review, read your intro to each other and answer honestly, does this intro capture your attention? Or is this intro so boring you would skip it? Okay, talk about it.
I rewrote my thesis. Yeah, I did. I switched my thesis. I changed how I worded it. I made it better, I think. I also don't. For the AP test, I like to think of like when we submit it, a whole bunch of like really old white dudes in powdered wigs sitting in a room together around like a really old table, like, well, he didn't use the comma in it. There it goes, the guys.
They're not looking that carefully at it.
Thinking about it that way would help me write better. So I feel like I'm writing for a bunch of guys in powder wigs. It's just gonna make me write more formal.
Yeah. You're thinking your audience is someone who is slightly more educated than you. That's how you want to think of that. Slightly more educated than you.
Where's the Tia? Oh, you didn't put it there? I think age is important too, though. It doesn't matter how educated they are, as long as they're relevant to my age. If someone like 60 is very would argue with their hang what is this idea, man?
Okay, one more thing that we are going to do here. Underneath that intro, I want you to just rewrite your very quick little outline so that I can see it. But this time, you're going to try and add in some examples that you plan to use. So I look here and I say, enable communication between viewpoints. Okay, I think my example for enabling communication between just viewpoints, like sort of more generally, I think I just want to use personal experience for that. And I want to use, because I just know that Dr. Borup's class was my very favorite, I'm going to use Dr. Borup as an example of somebody who does a really good job at enabling communication. All right, diverse viewpoints though, I can go to my thing here, and I want to talk about Baldwin with the value of diverse viewpoints and how Baldwin talks about how white people like kind of are excused because they think of themselves as innocent. I thought that idea will fit here. All right, and then I want to talk about the nuance of viewpoints, and I think using social media for that could be really important. So I'm going to use Klein and Tolentino for that, because I want to talk about how if you don't have, basically I'm blaming storming the Capitol on a lack of education. I'm saying if you don't have the ability to listen to other people's point of view and actually like understand that there's like gray areas and things, then this could be trouble. So I want to use Klein and Tolentino. And then to find the beauty in this world, communication to help us find the beauty in this world. Yeah.
Texas, the world is so.
Yeah, but I'm gonna do their eyes were watching God. That's just me. You guys do whatever you want to do. But you know how she tells her story in that book, for those of you who read it, like how she, through telling her story to her neighbor friend, she kind of like comes to peace with her choices and how her life has worked. So yeah. Okay, so you are going to plug in a couple examples now into your outline. What could you use? And it can be any of these type of examples. Give it a try, and then we're gonna play a game.
Oh, interesting.
Oh.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. You say other ideal.
we're gonna play a game.
Monopoly.
You guys seen this game? It's basically a game where you get to argue with people.
Yes.
Will you send your intro and all the work you've done to my email address? All right, so write your names on this and pass it forward wherever you are. I want to see how it's progressing. No, I don't need the prompt.
Good catch.
Okay, our goal here is to write arguments.
The gavel.
Oh, I don't have a gavel, unfortunately. We're going to come up with arguments that are going to convince your classmates. So your audience is your classmates.
Oh, these like serious topics or?
No, they're not very serious. Some of them aren't like that funny, but they're not very serious. Okay, so you do need like scrap paper for this, though. I didn't want it on this sheet, but you'll need something you can write on. Or you could use the computer if you want to. Yep, use that. That's great.
I thought of that first. Yeah, I think so. I think so. Just second. Yeah.
Rolling, culture quiz, culture survey. I feel uncomfortable in class.
Wait, that's a true point. Are we allowed to just bully freely now since the survey is done and it will ruin our reputation?
No.
Yeah.
we can take it as
Ben,
a-
you suck.
Oh. Well, guess what?
Good you.
Okay, this is just an example that we're gonna use. So the very first thing I'm gonna have you do is we're gonna read the topic and you are going to choose whether you agree or you disagree, which is called dissent. I dissent. I agree or I dissent. So the argument is tips should always be included in the price at a restaurant.
Always.
Always be included. Tips should always be included at the price at a restaurant.
So what are we writing?
And you would write down, this is just an example. You would write down, I agree or I disagree, right? I agree or I dissent. That's your initial proposal. And because this isn't part of the game, so if you bought this, they don't make you write a thesis statement, but because this is review for argument, I'm gonna make you write a thesis statement about it. So you agree or disagree, then you'll write a quick thesis statement. Then you make sure to cover that up. No one should be able to see your position. You're gonna do this all silently. If you say anything, it ruins the game. So you stay silent, you flip that over so that nobody can see it. And then I'm going to have you mingle around the room and try to convince people that your position is correct. So that's where you actually do state your opinion. You keep it, flipped over or whatever. This is so that people can't go around and start tallying it up. But you go around and you kind of try and convince people to join your side. Like, this is why my side is true. And you're doing this kind of like, you can kind of choose how to do it. You could get a crowd together and try and convince them. You could do it one-on-one, however you want to. You're playing a kind of political game because ultimately you can switch your position and you get a point if you are on the winning side. And you don't get a point if you're on the losing side. That makes sense? So if more people disagree, then you get a point. If more people agree, then you get a point if you were agreeing.
Hypothetically, not that I would do this, would we be able to stand on our desks and give political, like speeches to
Uh-huh.
the class?
Yes.
Okay. Not that I would do that.
Yes. Okay, you two at home, these two get to be part of the vote. It's Emmeline and Eli. So if anybody wants to try and convince them, they got to come over to the computer and try and convince them because there are 2 votes that you could have. Okay, so we're gonna do another one. We're doing it.
No, we're
Oh,
not.
I wrote a thesis
I
on
was
that
so
one.
confident. She said like 5 times, we're not doing this one.
Okay, so again, remember you stay quiet in this first part. This is just the deliberation period. So
I'm not doing that. I was so.
the argument is BO is worse than bad breath.
What is it?
BO, body odor, is worse than bad breath. Agree or disagree? Write that first.
Wait, what's the situation? It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. This is it. BO is worse than bad breath. I would love if this was your argument. So you write agree or disagree, and then you write a thesis to support it.
I wasn't arguing.
This one was? Amazing.
We had one that were the paper towels
I hated.
and those things are scary my whole life.
You feel like you're gonna get sucked in or something?
No, I feel like I'm too like clothes on my hands. I've like had nightmares about it.
Oh, no. So you guys are thinking of your position, you're writing a thesis, just do it on your own at home, not in the chat box.
Now you can choose how much you want to reveal about yourself. You might be the wild card that's walking around the room just quietly listening to everybody's points of view, but you're not gonna say which one you agree with or not. Or you could be the loudmouth who stands on the chair and makes it very clear that I'm the one who is going to follow this, who's going to decide what we all agree on, right? But you never have to tell the truth. You can always be lying and say, oh, yeah, I'm voting with you. I'm totally with you. You're playing a game here. It is a little. The goal here is to try to convince people with examples. So you're not just trying to say, this is true because of the force of my personality. Like in this class, you got a lot of forceful personalities. It's not gonna work. So you have to say, this is true for this very good reason that no one's gonna disagree with. And you have to kind of determine if somebody has a really good argument and he's going around saying that argument to everyone, do you think that's gonna persuade people? Okay, does everyone have their thesis written down? But it's a harder one. Okay, flip that over.
Well, do we bring this with, or do we just go talk?
You just go talk. I am going to, and you don't have to move if you don't want to. It's all up to your political personality here. I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes. That's all you get to convince. Okay, ready? Go ahead.
Are breath allowed?
I said body odors.
Say someone has a breath
For masks, I'm telling you.
So your goal is to end up on the winning side. Do you guys want to talk? I've got the volume up. You can get.
Eli, Emmeline, what's worse, masks or bad breath or BO?
BO.
Emmeline,
I think bad breath.
okay, so let me tell you why you're wrong.
All right.
Okay, we wear masks now. So in a society where we wear masks, you can't even smell people's breath. Not to mention, we're social distancing all the time. So we're not even close enough to smell it. BO is unavoidable. Even if you wear 15 layers, it'll bleed through the clothing and you can still smell it across the room.
It's also a lot harder to get rid of. Bad breath you can get rid of by just brushing your teeth, and it's only a problem, or chewing gum, and it's only a problem if you're like literally making out with someone because of masks.
There's another reason.
Another reason?
Yeah. So there are no medical consequences for having BO, but for bad breath, it's really easy to avoid. And like if you don't brush your teeth, your face is gonna be broken. So BO is worse because there is no incentive to fix it.
Yep. Have we changed your mind, Emmeline?
But doesn't that literally argue the exact opposite point too?
Wow.
No, because
There's no incentive to worry about body odor because it doesn't like.
because
Okay,
you should
but-
view this
but
question
literally
as,
bad breath though, because that can literally harm physically and mentally.
No, that doesn't.
Like,
no, but you should be viewing this question as how you're affecting a different person.
Because
but there's different ways that you could read the question. It could be affecting the person themselves, or it could be affecting the audience around
Well,
them.
see, here's the thing. That's why bad breath isn't as bad, is because if you don't take care of it, it has worse consequences. So more people take care of it. So it's something that you have more incentive to change. Body odor, you can't smell it yourself. It doesn't have bad medical effects. So like, you have no inspiration to change it.
Sam's uninterested.
I feel like I've won this argument.
Okay.
Have I changed your mind?
I mean, like, I could see both points. I kind of just wanted to pick the harder one to argue. So.
Okay. Okay. I will take my leave.
Okay, but imagine if you had BO and all of us would be smiling. Yeah. And then we'd be
I don't care
judging,
what you guys feel
but
like.
we would
I
be
care what I
judging you
feel
on
like.
it. We'd be judging you
Well,
on
then
it.
choose some down.
That's true. I can choose them.
Because even if you had a really
You
bad
can solve
BO,
that
you
problem
have
so
BO
much
bad
easier.
all day,
Yeah.
you're like, okay, your
You
fourth
have
period,
to smell your own BO too.
and then your fourth period class says something, about you're like, okay, I'll put on deodorant. By then, BO has already seeped into your clothes and you can't get rid of it.
No, it might be there for a lifetime.
But if you had bad breath all day, you can chew gum one time and then it's gone.
That's true. That's true. But
Okay.
have you ever had that like bad breath smell where like the person, it smells like dog poop?
Yeah,
Something about it that.
We're wearing masks.
But we're wearing masks, so
That's
yeah.
true.
Not to
That's
mention,
true.
you're also supposed to social distance.
Are we ready for a vote?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is where everybody reveals. I am going to make you write it down underneath if you have changed your opinion. If you've changed your opinion, write it down. Because we have to be able to hold you to this. You can't just look at who's voting and then decide. Normally they have cards for this game, but I didn't make the cards for everybody. Okay, you got it written down, whether you agree or disagree. Final vote?
Yes.
All right, cool. How many of you guys agree BO is worse than bad breath? Wow, all of you.
Except Emmeline.
BO is worse. Emmeline, is BO worse or bad breath? You didn't write it down in here. Sure. LMAO. Okay. All right, everybody gets a point. You can write a little point down on your paper. Everybody has to keep track of their own.
Communist.
Okay, let's do another one. This one says there is no such thing as luck. There is no such thing as luck. Do you agree with that? Or you disagree that there is such thing as luck?
I'm gonna need some
So
time.
it's saying there's no.
It says there's no such thing as luck. Yeah. There's no such thing as luck. So write down disagree or agree and then the statement. Is it the double negative that's messing us up here?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
I get it. I don't know how.
I know. Yeah,
Like, I
ultimately,
understand what you're
we've turned a complex thing into a black or white issue, but it's forcing you to make it plain.
Just pick one and then you can just say you change your mind to something.
That there is true, that is no luck. You make your way. No such thing as luck.
All Macbeth? What's Macbeth?
Macbeth is a play about murder.
Oh.
Oh, I love her.
Perfect then.
If you want, we don't have to read it. I can show you right here.
Okay.
Whoa. Holy.
You got your thesis statement. Your thesis statement should have a claim and a reason, right?
I don't have paper.
I got it.
Okay, flip that back around so no one can see it because you can choose to be silent about what your original position was. I want to see more people like going around trying to convince. I think that can be fun.
The last one, everybody.
Yeah, let's make sure we got some differences here. We'll see. Okay, ready? Go ahead.
Hey,
And I need
Yeah. Okay. There is something Yeah, I agree because but, I mean, is it,
No, I don't know how it works.
Because if you you guys believe in luck? Let me try and change your mind. So luck is by definition is success or failure brought by chance rather than mental action. And there's so many times, just anywhere luck is brought into play. Like, my dad has worked in the same job for 25 years. And he's been passed up for a job, like a job raise to 3 different people, even though he has the exact same education, if not more education, more experience, everything. And that was a coincidence that the other person just happened to have higher. And coincidence is the same thing. So if you believe in something like coincidence,
Are you selling votes?
No.
All right, I'm gonna give you 1 more minute.
but that's exactly what
I'm
I'm
a
saying. What do you call?
Cooper, Cooper,
So in that sense, you just have to take luck as a literal definition. Because if you're going off of a religious or superstitious thing, I agree with you. But but if you're going off of the literal definition, luck is based off of probability. And chances. Like there's a super small chance that if you're a soccer player, if they did, that would be lucky. Even though there's that small
You guys
chance
have
they
been
would.
ignored in this debate. So when I ask for a vote, just put your vote in the chat box. All right, let's vote. Okay, just based on, write down on your paper, there is no such thing as luck or there is such thing as luck. Which one? No such thing as luck means you agree. If you do think there is such thing as luck, then you disagree.
Do you agree with this? Oh, okay, well, hold on. And now if I say I disagree, seems like I'm disagreeing with you.
I want to give like one final reason why everybody should say
Biden.
disagree.
Time's up. All right.
Others seem with them.
Do you agree there is no such thing as luck? Raise your hand if you agree. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and there. Oh, and Eli. So 7. Okay, how many say there is such a thing as luck? You guys are the winners, so give yourself a point if you said there is such a thing as luck. Okay, I want to do one more very quickly. It's funny to me. Okay. Nobody can make a bicycle helmet sexy. I think.
Ben Bridget.
So write down if you agree that nobody can make a bicycle helmet sexy, or if you disagree. We won't do the thesis.
Have you seen those unicorn ones with the hologram?
Are we saying that no one can wear, like, are we saying that no one can make a helmet that is sexy, or no one can wear a helmet and make it look sexy?
Where?
Okay.
Nobody can wear a bicycle helmet in a sexy way.
Not, so the bicycle helmet are the ones that have like, that are aerodynamic and have holes in them. That is a bicycle helmet.
Yeah.
Not like a skater helmet. There's many.
What about the race type helmets that look like
All right, so just write down whether you agree with this statement that nobody can make a bicycle helmet sexy, or you disagree. Some people could wear a bicycle helmet and it would be sexy. And you don't need to write the thesis part, because I just want to do it fast. If you want to, you could. All right, and then I'm gonna give you 2 minutes this time is all to go in debates. Go ahead. Agree.
I think my comments are ugly, so.
Have you seen the 2019 though?
I said, yes, yes, I am.
Like Davis.
Yeah.
Like Davis. Oh.
You can think of ice.
Who's that?
You can definitely make.
Oh.
And I think I would just not. It's just not, they're just not. They make your head look weird.
You know what, though? Babies and bicycles
Are sexy.
No, wait, hold on. Hold on.
Now that I am turning you in for.
Babies and bicycles don't look as bad as adults.
They look adorable.
Yes,
I'm
not
not,
sexy.
I think I went to Chris Evans and a bike helmet and he like. And we had a
You guys agree?
bike helmets are.
Maybe the
They're
other
not
thing.
women in the money.
Maybe the other thing.
That's why
Yeah.
nobody-
I just don't see how you can style a bike helmet and strap it.
Oh, that's so cute.
It doesn't
And if they have glasses.
No, but it-
They're clearly a mess, but they are so
Yeah.
cute.
So like, it looks like a statue picture.
But
Dogs make bicycle helmets.
Sexy?
Yeah, no,
Getting
no.
some-
I think that part of it is sexy. I think so. Like, what's-
And like,
Sam, you have an idea for you.
and then they put a bike helmet.
No, listen.
Destroy the image.
Wait, is Sam agree with me? What do you say?
Sam,
And they're back.
Sam, what do you think?
What?
What do you think?
That bike helmet makes you not sexy.
Yeah.
All right, write down on the paper if you've changed your mind.
Bike helmets are
You
ugly.
guys write into the chat box. Do you agree that nobody can make a bicycle helmet sexy?
I don't think so. I don't think Chris Evans would look good in a bike helmet.
That's
When
one
it's like stolen.
You can describe the sexiest person on the planet and then end the sentence in the bike helmet, and you will snicker.
There are
Your head like, okay, but you're
Good
still.
looking bike.
Find it sexy, I guess.
All right,
A fetish and sexy are different.
okay, let's vote. I invited that with this topic, but, who agrees that nobody can make a bicycle helmet look sexy? Raise
I
your hand.
don't agree, but I'm doing it.
Emmeline agrees, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, who disagrees? Some people can make bike helmets sexy.
How?
Look it up.
How?
Find me an attractive person with a bike helmet.
I should go.
Hey, no, but listen,
Well,
you
proves
know,
our
if
point then,
you're-
right?
if you're-